Humans have an innate drive for adventure. From the first explorers to the weekend warriors. There's nothing quite like dreaming, planning, and then experiencing a trip, especially when you're among good company. Our plan was to bicycle from Lake Michigan to Lake Huron, utilizing Michigan's extensive rails-to-trail system. A roughly 215-mile tour that would take us 2 days with bike trails almost the entire way. I was joined by my close friends, Eric Strickler and Mark Bryson. We would be supported by our other friends documenting the journey. Starting on the west side of the state, we dipped our tires in the clear blue waters of Lake Michigan, Michigan's second largest Great Lake, and then headed east. Muskegon's Lakeshore Trail brought us through the quiet streets of Lakeside and onto the Musketawa Trail, a 25-mile trail connecting the lakeshore with Grand Rapids. The Musketawa Trail traverses through orchards, farmlands, and wide-open grassy fields. It was early October, and once we left the cooler climate of the lakes and entered the wide-open countryside of Michigan, we could feel the heat of the sun warming the earth around us. The energy was high as we settled into our pace, talking and laughing while the scenery changed around us. We arrived in Grand Rapids late in the morning, and after a little city street navigation, we crossed the Grand River and turned north onto the White Pine Trail system. This would take us from Riverside Park in Grand Rapids all the way to day one's destination, Reed City. Our crew was in no rush and decided to stop at a local brewery for burgers and a beer before getting back on our bikes and continuing north, along the Rogue River on the old rail bed that once connected Cincinnati, Ohio to Mackinac City, Michigan. Cyclists in Michigan can thank the Frederick Meyer Foundation for 12 spectacular bike trails all over the Lower Peninsula. Frederick Meyer once said, and I quote, "It's critical that we secure railroad rights-of-way at the earliest possible time. Once they are gone, the opportunity to incorporate them into the trail system is lost forever." His foresight allows cyclists today to travel freely for hundreds of scenic miles all over the Great Lakes state. The White Pine Trail was idyllic, and the trees really put on a show. Bright red maples always caught our attention, and magnificent yellow birch leaves stood out against their stark white trunks. What a time to travel across this beautiful state. Michigan is the #1 trail state in the nation, with a little more than 2,600 miles of rail trail, more than any other state in the country. These trails once transported timber, or green gold, during the logging boom of the 1800s. Norman Schultz noted in his book, The Land Nobody Wanted, that by the year 1890, Muskegon alone had produced wood products statewide valued at $3 billion, more than twice the value of gold mined in California during the gold rush. What a difference that only 100 years later, we are now riding these same rail beds to admire the trees and their natural surroundings. Fall days are short, and with limited light and about 115 miles in the saddle, we arrived at camp in the dark. I was whipped, cold and hungry. Our crew got a fire going, finished off a couple of pizzas, and retired to our tents. The cool night air made sleeping conditions perfect. Nestling deep into our bags, we dozed off after a long day. The next morning, a light fog sat over the campground. While we were brushing our teeth and packing up camp, the sun started to fight its way through, making for a beautiful pre-ride morning. Birds were singing to us, and everyone was excited to continue on to day 2's destination, Lake Huron. The second half of our trip would be along the Pere Marquette State Rail Trail, a 55-mile bike trail that connects Clare County to Midland, Michigan. Referred to as the Cadillac of trails, the Pere Marquette is 14 feet wide and allowed us to travel 3 abreast, cracking jokes, remembering old stories, and trading food as we pedaled on. Mileage for our second day was not as much as day 1, only a mile over a century ride. The smooth pavement of the White Pine Trail made for a very enjoyable morning. Not to mention, we had made it to the middle of the state and were now heading on a downhill grade all the way to the east side. We were in no rush. We had no emails to check or meetings to attend. The schedule was just one pedal stroke after the other. Hydrate when you need, eat every so often, and soak up the surroundings. Days like this are so important, to shut off technology, get outside, and allow the day to pass by, slowly, the way it should be. Michigan is beautiful. Anyone that argues that fact must travel the state with their eyes closed. We rode through wetlands, tunnels of trees, and across rivers. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and the sun warmed our skin as we continued on, mile after mile. It took us a few hours to make it to the Tridge, or the three-legged bridge spanning the confluence of the Tittabawassee and Chippewa rivers in Chippewassee Park. The Bay City Area Riverwalk was memorable, with a long boardwalk, waterfront trails, and diverse scenery. With only an hour of riding left, we grouped up and finished the final miles to Bay City State Park. Hearing the welcome sound of waves and smelling the water, our crew shared in the excitement and adrenaline of the finish line. Stripping our shirts off, we carried our bikes to Lake Huron and jumped in. Moments like this stay imprinted in our memories, but it's not just about getting to the finish. We had experienced so much along the way, stories we can joke about until we're old. Because adventures will always have their unexpected surprises. We for sure were not the first riders to complete this journey. There are even some people that ride the entire 215 miles in a single push. Our hope is that you get out and experience just a mile of one of these beautiful trails. Recreate your own journey. Make your own adventure. We want to hear your stories. But for now, thank you for listening to ours.